Samba Sport Podcast, where stories are told.
Hello and welcome back to Samba Sports Podcast, where stories are told. My name is Denton Knight, and today this is the third part of a three-part series where we're flipping the script, and I, a guest from the University of Oxford, I'm interviewing Mohammed Wachwasa to learn about his experiences working in the international development space. In the previous two episodes, we spoke about Samba sports specifically, and also about the challenges facing the Kwale region, and the opportunities as well. So to get started, Mohammed has worked with many different international organizations. He's worked with USAID, with the Aga Khan Foundation, with
Medicines
Sans Frontiers, and then
Search for Common Ground.
And the connecting, what's it called again? The most recent one?
Search for Common Ground.
Search for Common Ground, right. And having worked with all these different international NGOs, and now also this local community service organization, how would you describe the relationships and the partnerships between these two spaces, these two kinds of organizations?
Well, I have had the opportunity to sit in big seats for international organizations, but also I have had the opportunity to sit in small tables for grassroots organizations. So for grassroots organizations, all people see is the opportunity to serve. They are connected to their people, they have the passion, and they see the challenges in every day. Probably they live the challenges in their own hearts because they are part of it, and they want an opportunity to serve. For international organizations, a lot more, they are looking for, yes, they want something to be delivered, but they are looking more at structures. They are looking at more at monitoring and evaluation levels of programming. They are looking at stellar levels and approaches. So in that there's a bit of a disconnect, because whereas the objectives may be similar, but the way the perspectives are a bit different, and because of that, many international organizations sometimes may have lost the opportunity to get the right organization to work with, because these right organizations seem not ready in the eyes of the international organizations. And now for grassroots organizations, their perspective is they want a chance. They are there, and they may not believe in investing in structures and systems so that they can be ready to be seen by international organizations as ready for those opportunities. So these are the two different perspectives. Yeah.
Right. And for viewers' awareness who may be new to this space, there's many international organizations who have large pools of funding coming from foundations and other really rich individuals or government organizations, and they come to different countries and they have national offices. But in order to implement the projects, they oftentimes partner with these small grassroots organizations to try to extend that reach and to contextualize what they're doing in a meaningful manner. So last week we talked a bit about your work with Search for Common Ground, when you went across East and Central Africa and looked to identify possible partner organizations. You shared a bit about how you did that. Can you tell me more? I think you said there was like 4 questions that you would ask.
Yeah, I think in our conversations we talked about how to make it easy for grassroots organizations to get an opportunity and to deliver stellar levels of work. And because international organizations would have a long process, like you'd have 5-6 pages of an RFA, request for application, which talks about so many things in 5-6 pages of a lot of content. So for an organization to read that, to understand it, and then to be told to write another 10 pages or 8 pages of how they are going to address the work. Not many young organizations have the patience and the technique and the capacity to read all that text. Right. And then also, not all these young, ready, passionate organizations have the ability to write technical proposal. So what happens is very well-meaning international organizations lose out on the very best young grassroots organizations that are available. And for those organizations that will get the funds, two things would happen. Either they pay someone to write for them their proposals, or they have to wait until they are ready to write such technical proposal.
Right.
And for that purpose, what happens is, if we get somebody to write for us a technical proposal, we don't understand it as an organization. So when the time comes, because we had a beautiful document, when the time comes and we have the funds, we are struggling to implement it because it is not our idea.
Right. Right.
We don't understand what was written. And when I had the opportunity to go to Burundi through Search for Common Ground to support a project that was stalling, and part of the process was to bring in small grants for media and other organizations, I said, I only have 1.5 months here, and the process of international organization looking for grantees will take up to 3 months. What can I do? I don't want to go back home having not finished this process. So quick thinking, I said, can we try this other model? And I said, let us stop writing long documents. Let us just have one page explaining what we want this organization to do. In that one page, we give them only 3 or 4 questions to answer.
Right.
When they answer those questions, we shortlist them and call them for a pitching session where for 7 to 10 minutes they are able to say how they have understood the project and how they feel they can contribute with innovation to that. And so for me, there are 3 or 4 questions that are important. Do you understand the context that this project is looking at? Do you understand what the project wants to do? Third is, do you have contribution, innovation, creativity that you feel can address the challenges that this project wants to address? Tops. So if an organization within a page is able to say, we understand this project this way, we understand the context this way and the challenges, and these are our contributions that we feel would make a change.
Right.
Colors, that's enough. Then you call them for a 7 minutes, 10 minutes pitching session, right, and they tell us by their own words. And if we don't understand them, maybe we ask them questions to clarify. What do you mean by this? How do you mean by this? By so doing, you'll be able to get a lot more young organizations through the door and give them an equal opportunity to deliver something that they already have a passion for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So to summarize, the issue seems to be that international organizations will ask for these proposals from all these organizations in order to implement projects they have funds for. Yeah. Yet they struggle, these young projects and these small organizations. Maybe English in some contexts isn't a first language, or even if it is, maybe the people are really good at running the programs on the ground, but they don't know how to write proposals that meet these standards of professionalism and of clarity and competency and monitoring and evaluation elements and all this stuff. Yeah. So the idea would be, what you were trying to implement with your program, flip the script a little bit. These international organizations should be reaching out to these smaller groups and looking for them, right?
Yeah. Come down, understand the context. See, because there'll be countless organizations that are already volunteering to address those issues that you have money to address.
Right.
But they won't get the money if you keep to your very complex systems of recruiting grantees. Yeah. So it's a lost opportunity.
Yeah.
It's a lost opportunity.
It's a huge lost opportunity. But how do you think that these organizations can empower the local community groups to do some of that monitoring and evaluation work? Or because oftentimes these international organizations do have to report to they sometimes have donors as well, and they have to show that we're meeting certain standards of impact or quality, and they've supported so many lives shaped or whatever. Yeah. So how do you do that when someone doesn't have that professional competency yet?
Yeah, maybe the first question before I even answer yours is, as a donor, what are you paying for? Are you paying for good structures, or are you paying for good results? You are paying for good results, right? So that's number one. Once you know Samba Sports or any other organization can give you the good results, it is your responsibility now to work with them through the structures, that as you implement and give us these great outcomes, we are going to be coaching you also to uplift your levels bit and bit. Because if you don't give them the money to perform, who else do you imagine will be coming to address their structural gaps?
Right.
All right? None. So basically, that's it. And as Samba Sports Youth Agenda, we have trialed a fellowship model for the last 1 year, and we've realized it's even better than the normal programming. Because with the Fazil Chinoi Fellowship, they gave us an opportunity to start off our fellowship, and we were able to bring in 2 fellows. And the results of that 1 year are amazing. We are still pinching ourselves whether it was real, because it was so much more than we asked for. And we did an outcome harvesting of the results of the 1 year. And for both fellows, the donors wouldn't believe the outcomes. And as Samba Sports, we are pitching to the donors out there and say, welcome and smell the coffee. I think where your money adds more value is in fellowships. In a fellowship, we are identifying a young social entrepreneur who is already passionate and already doing something, and we give them support by giving them stipends and grooming them in their leadership and building a team around them. And as we do that, we are still implementing that project.
Right. All right. So you find someone that already has some sort of vision of their own, and then you support them. Right.
And we support them. Right. And not just supporting them to implement that project, we are supporting them to groom their leadership. We are supporting them to build a team around them. We are supporting them to build formidable structures, operational excellence of the organization. Right. And the icing to the pudding is that they are also delivering results for that project.
But the important idea here is that the seed ideas and the seed vision is coming from the individuals out of the community, right?
Yes, and there's this what we'd call a lopsided way of doing programming, that you sit in the US or you sit in London and you have an idea of what Kwale problems are, and you want Kwale to address those ideas. Human-centered design kind of development is to come and look at the people and ask them, what is your main challenge? It could be on livelihood, but then what element? So that you ride by what they believe, not by what you believe from London, not what you believe from New York, not what you believe from the Netherlands. You ride by what the people in that context believe and are passionate about addressing.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are some of the projects that these fellows have worked on so far?
2 amazing projects. One is intellectual literacy and leadership program, which is in schools and supporting learners in mentorship and also ethical leadership and public speaking and literary prowess. It's been an amazing one. And the other fellow is working with widows. Widows are the most secluded individuals, the most discriminated against, the most traumatized. So the fellow has been working with the widows and supporting them on mental health, supporting them on livelihood support, and also supporting them on social networking. And right now the widows have their small businesses, their lives are moving. They say we are now independent, we are socially connected, and we can walk into offices and ask for our own stuff. So that's been an amazing 1 year of the fellowship. Yeah.
How did you find these fellows in the first place?
We reached out. Yeah. When we had the opportunity, we reached out and say, we are scanning around Kwale. Who are these young people who are doing amazing work? Yeah. And if you are doing an amazing work, it's easy to notice. Yeah. Yeah. And after mapping and shortlisting and interviewing, including the donors, checking with these fellows, we got the 2 top ones that we started with. But we have a lot more out there who need support. Yeah.
And since you're embedded in the community, you can do that finding. And so you would say this fellowship model is kind of a model as well for maybe some international organizations could do a little bit modified, right? Like they could try to search for these people that are running in like small community organizations.
Of course, through local interlocutors. You cannot fly from London and just come and meet the Nuris.
Can't look on the internet and see it.
You have to go through the process. But we want to say, as an organization, Samba Sports, we believe a lot more in the fellowship model because we have more than 50 young people working with us. You can imagine if bunches of these young people were empowered through fellowships, and then they are able to break away from Samba sports, but doing amazing job by their own. In 5-6 years, you'd have made around 10 small organizations that are doing brilliant work through the mentorship. Wow. So that's the kind of situation we are looking at. Of course, we appreciate the project funding, but we feel a lot more excited that the fellowship model would do a lot more good in the entire coastal region than just funding projects.
Okay. And final question, do you have any advice for a young listener who might be interested in getting into a field like your career path has been?
I want to advise, because every time we have volunteers coming in, I tell them something. We tell them what's exciting for Samba and the challenges. But for me, there's one statement I always tell them, that working for community as a social worker is the most unthankful job, but the most fulfilling. Because a lot of people would think you could have done it the other way, or maybe you are benefiting with this other way, or there's a lot of criticism in this work. But then when you go home and you know you've lifted someone, you are very happy. Like just yesterday, we were advocating for young people that we saw who had stellar talents in art. And yesterday we got artists from Mombasa, Karorita, to speak the name, who said, I'm doing mentorship for artists, and please bring the kids. You can imagine, we are all happy. We are all happy that we have made an opportunity for 4 young kids whose life might be battered because of being thespians. And that's a one day's work. So you go home very happy. So that's the oil that lubricates our life. It's not the praises, it's not the money, it's not everything. So it's a very exciting career, very fulfilling, but you need to be patient, you need to sacrifice, and you need to wait for the results too.
Right. It's not going to be flashy. And
it's no.
And what I love about your approach is it's not about, can I make the giant strategic impact? Can I change the world? It's, can I change my community? Exactly. Can I change myself? Yeah. So, okay. Thank you everyone for listening. And this concludes the third part of this series. Thanks again. And thank you, Mohammed, for speaking with me. I have learned a lot and really enjoyed the conversation. So,
welcome again.
Thank you again.